What is going on, interwebs? Day 4. We've got our coffees. We're ready to rock.
Sometimes Thursday just feels like Monday, so we're powering up.
That's right. This is a Starbucks promotion. Starbucks, give us free coffee.
That's cool.
No,
but we are going to give you all kinds of
free
tips.
content.
Yeah, tons of free time.
Unless you want to pay for it. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, man. Today's a good one. Really leaning into what the role of the forearm and wrist is. For all you players that have heard wrist snap, which is an inappropriate term, it kind of talks about something with the biomechanics. We're going to get into exactly what happens during pronation and more specifically internal shoulder rotation.
This is true. You want me to go through the 3-day review?
In case you missed it, we have to, right? Let's get a quick little in summation, if you will.
Yes, so guys, I'm going to go through the workbook here. Again, obviously, we want you to pick up the recording so you can watch this over and over and over again. You're going to hear me say it 7 times today. PlayYourCourt.com/recordings is where you can get the workbook I am getting ready to share with you, as well as recordings to this wonderful experience. Let me give you a tour of days 1 through 3. And also do me a favor. We want questions from you guys. We want to really have the opportunity to interact with you guys as much as possible. So as I go through days 1 through 3, even if you missed them, if you have any questions on any of this content, drop them in the comments. We will get to them and we'll see you there. If it's 5-10 minutes before we answer you, it's not that we're ignoring you. We're just going to wait for that logical time to answer the questions. So on day 1, we really talked about what a lot of people would consider basics, but they're very, very important basics. So we talked about the continental grip. A lot of people were surprised to learn that it's not just their index knuckle, but also their heel pad that must be on bevel 2. Talked about a drill you can do downs with the edge of your racket as the litmus test to see if you have a true continental grip. That'll get that heel pad where it needs to be. We moved into the serve stance. We talked a lot about how your back toe must line up with your front heel, and that when done correctly, this creates a line that points to the outside net post. Both sides of the court look the same. If you're a lefty, just flip the arrow pointing to the other net post. We then got into a drill to really get you comfortable with getting that toss arm in the air like you just don't care, getting into that rear pelvic tilt and making sure we're getting that power from a cartwheel-like motion. This reminder was not an exercise on toss location, but we then did talk about an exercise on toss location. And we talked about removing all the joints from our elbow, from our wrist, from our fingers, and how to really get that ball moving in a straight line, releasing at eye level, targeting about 6 to 8 inches out in front of us, depending on our height. Then on to day 2, we talked a lot about this right to left drill. And this is really the secret sauce to make sure you prevent yourself from flopping into waiter's tray, which is where all the power is robbed. We then moved on to how to think about approaching the ball with your elbow instead of placing your racket down your back. This exercise really gets you comfortable approaching the ball correctly to make sure you get in the correct racket drop, which is what you're really looking for. And then we closed out day 2 with something called the pull sub drill and talking about how to activate that back foot as you swing up towards the ball. Yesterday, day 3, it was all about fluidity. We talked about the weighted sock drill, and this was just all about understanding the motion in the ocean, getting the rhythm really, dialed in and understanding how to swing that arm around. Moving on to the 3-finger drill, we talked about how to release tension in the bottom 2 fingers when you are swinging. We talked about how with that tension, you'll never get that full racket drop. So the 3-finger drill is a very important one. And then lastly, we brought it all together with a figure 8 drill to really bring the fluidity together with the lack of tension from the 3-finger drill. Shebang-a-lang-lang, Nate. That was 3 days and 3 minutes.
Good. Yeah, that's not bad. All right, so let's get into day 4. We refer to this as the Kendall Hart drill. Kendall Hart, amazing teaching pro. Had the opportunity to work next to him at Tennis Congress, and he was working with a student about leading with the edge of the racket. And really, the student was working on slice, but this was a great way to learn with the lead, the edge as well. So we basically incorporated it. So kudos to Ken. Awesome job.
Really good coach.
Yeah, with this particular.
Really good dude, too.
So leading with the edge. Let's go to the studio. I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about.
There you are, sir.
All right. So let's take a look at the curio serve. So a lot of times what will happen is that players start getting the racket drop. The things start breaking down on the flip from the racket drop up out to contact. And what ends up happening is that they don't lead with the edge of the racket. I'm going to show you that to you right here. So we have the racket drop. And then from this point, what you'll notice is the edge of the racket. Let me get a different color here so you can really see it. So right here, the edge of the racket that I'm highlighting in yellow, this is going to lead up to the ball. And this is very much like hammering a nail, right? It's the elbow extends to full contact. It's going to flip and it'd be as if you're driving a nail into the wall. So from here, let's go even slower and actually watch this happen. So there you can see the flip. So it's from the edge, then the flip, that's pronation, and that's where the racket becomes flush with the ball. To give another visual, because we get asked all the time, specifically, what this looks like. Let me show it to you from the front. This is Djokovic. That is going to be really slow. So from right here, the racket drop, elbow leads up to the ball from day yesterday. This is elbow the ball drill, day 2. There's the edge leading to the ball, the flip, pronation out to contact, and then down to the follow through. So what this drill is, a great way to learn this is Ken's drill here. Let me put this in slow motion. What you want to do in the beginning, if you're following with the workbook, you want to choke up on the racket and really control the edge, the head of the racket and the orientation of the edge of the racket. But you want to toss the ball not too super high, just high enough that you can catch it. Fun fact, this is the wrong video. My bad. Back to the 5 P's, Scott.
Prior planning, poor performance.
Yeah, my bad. There it is.
While you're out, go ahead. I think they got the idea.
Yeah.
Very similar looking.
Yeah, but on this one, you're not making contact with the ball yet. Here, you're literally trying to hit the ball with the edge of the racket. And you can see there where I'm just holding the finish. I'm actually pointing the racket in the direction. This is going into the side fence. I'm just getting comfortable with the edge of the racket leading to the ball.
Just getting comfortable chopping that ball, right? I mean, you're literally, remember, guys, trying to hit the ball with the edge of your racket and just get, this is, again, all of this is so that you understand what it feels like.
So back to the previous video that I showed. Now it's just getting comfortable with leading with the edge and then flipping, pronating so that the strings make contact with the ball. And this is a really easy way to learn the slice serve. If you have a hard time with your second serve, slice is always a good way to make it consistent. Or if you're just looking for a different weapon. I mean, Federer's favorite serve, deuce court, slice wide, right? Because it opens up the rest of the court. So also a great way to learn the slice.
All right, that is it for the Kinda Heart Drill. Guys, any questions that you have on the Kinda Heart Drill or any questions from days 1 through 3, throw them in the comments section. Let's go ahead and move on to our next drill here that is all about understanding where to make contact with the ball.
Contact point. Yes, sir.
I think I can actually use the workbook here. It might be the most efficient version of this. We'll show them the stage version as well. But so what we want to talk to you about here, let me share my screensies. Takes me longer to share than you. All right, so what we're talking about here, and you're going to see it visually in step 4 here. Our goal for you at contact, if my mouse will let me zoom, is really for you to be fully extended to the point where that shirt on your racket side actually pulls up a little bit. You can see Nate's ripped obliques here.
Yeah, this is right around Christmas.
The blubber fest. So the goal here, full extension. So as high as you can reach, but you'll see that Nate is not over his head at 12 o'clock because that would hurt. That would cause shoulder impingement. He is at 1 o'clock. And when I say 1 o'clock, again, I'm thinking straight up in the air is noon. Perpendicular here with his body would be 3. This is 1 o'clock. He's reaching up. So the drill that we're looking to practice here to make sure you understand this contact and get some reps in and see whether you're doing it or not. A lot of times we do this drill with folks, they're shocked at how low their contact point is. The drill is simply line up on a wall, preferably like the chain link fence, a soft curtain, something that's not going to destroy your racket. Like a brick wall is not ideal here, but it does work if you've got no other options. You're going to line up. You're going to toss that ball along the surface, the curtain, the wall. And then you are going to approach that ball with the blade like we just talked about in the Kinda Heart drill. You can see Nate's racket face here is getting ready to approach that ball with the edge. And then he is going to clamp that ball. And then a key piece of this is to freeze and just kind of look, see where you are. Is your arm really low? Are you actually at full extension? Are you at 1 o'clock? Are you all the way over there at 3 or at noon? Are you feeling shoulder impingement? So this is, again, just a really good sort of really just litmus test to see if you're doing what you think you're doing, and you can sort of freeze in real life and measure it.
Let's show it to them in the stage, in real time. I guess real time would be technically hitting series, but
well, let's get it.
So here you're not tossing, but so high because you've got the height of the curtain. But here you can really see that extension that Scott's talking about. And I'm just rolling the ball up the curtain and trapping the ball the best I can, right? So another great way to do this, if you don't have access to a curtain or the chain link fence is bouncing the ball everywhere, is simply back up, take like 6 steps off the baseline, and from here hit a serve and literally try to hit the opposing fence, the opposing side. But make sure that you hold the contact point. This is what you're trying to feel. Hold this, right? Don't let the racket continue through. Hold the contact point so you get really comfortable where it should be.
I'm going to give you a visual of this because I think this is hard to sort of understand unless you see it. It's going to be even harder to... What have I done, Nate?
What are you doing, buddy?
Having some technology issues. Interesting. No camera for us. Never seen that before. And we're back. No, we're not. And we're back. All right. That's the best part about live. It's
technology baby.
All right. So what Nate is talking about here, and you're not going to see me do this at full extension because I don't actually know what. Yes, you are. We're going to go up to this guy here. You can check my chin out for a minute. So what Nate's talking about here is at full extension, freezing at contact, and you're literally popping this ball up over that back fence. So that's the drill. If you don't want to go smack your racket against the wall, you don't have a nice curtain, or you're scared you're going to make really loud sounds and freak everybody out. This is another good drill. You can go to the court, freeze at contact, snap that wrist, take a look. Am I at full contact? Am I at full extension? Am I down here? This is another way to get the same outcome from the clamp the ball drill.
Yes, sir. All right. Let's talk about internal shoulder rotation. This is exercise 3, the thumb down drill.
Finish him.
That's right. Yeah.
All right. You want to go? Where do you want to go?
Yeah. I think it's easier. So the workbook, basically what this is talking about is pronation. And our buddy Ian Westerman over at Essential Tennis does a great job where he talks about the roll of the hand, where the palm is going to face in. And from here, as the racket starts to travel, the palm will be flush with the ball of contact, and then the palm is going to turn out. Now, to ensure internal shoulder rotation, we also want you to think about what's happening with the thumb, right? So as the thumb goes down, the shoulder should stay up to some degree. It doesn't have to be Pete Sampras, but a lot of times what happens is that when people make contact, they pronate, and then they come back across their body, and they can't figure out why their serve is going long and doesn't have the power. So shooting over to the stage, let me show you the first part of this. And this is, you don't need a racket. I'm just starting with the racket as if I'm in my power position. As I make contact right there, as I come through from pronation, I'm going to make sure that my thumb is down. This is internal shoulder rotation. I know it seems goofy, but right now you can do this at home and you're going to find what internal shoulder rotation means. And this is a really big part. I'm telling you, for advanced players specifically, or kind of that bridge between intermediate and advanced. We have students that are like, I can hit the ball 80 miles per hour. I can't get that gap. This is sometimes where they start finding the 3-digit mark because they start really figuring out, for the lack of better words, wrist snap. Now, the next part of this is I'm just going to toss about shoulder height, and I'm going to do the same thing with the racket. And this is going to bounce the ball off the ground. Now, I want to show you the next video here where it's a little bit more clear and you can actually see what's happening with the ball. So same thing, not tossing high. I'm just keeping the arm up, the elbow and shoulder up, and allowing pronation, that wrist snap, and then really getting that big bounce, right? So if you've ever wondered, well, how do I hit an overhead over my opponent's fence? It's this, right? So now move up to the net and do the drill from here.
A little bonus content for you.
But this is the same way that you're getting pace on your serve, right? You want to feel that snap coming through.
It's kind of like you're cracking a bullwhip.
Yeah. And the reason we're kind of like not being super positive about wrist snap is wrist snap can happen with supination a lot of different ways. It doesn't necessarily suggest that it's pronation. Regardless of what activity, when throwing is involved, we should see pronation. Now, the internal shoulder rotation is going to occur from pronation and then allowing that elbow to stay up as the thumb moves down. That, I do believe.
That's the content.
That's it for today. Yeah.
Let's open up the floor to some questions. I'm also going to run you through when you come and train with us live, and I will throw this link up here because I have been asked that twice already on this particular recording.
If you
want to come hang with us down here in Virginia Beach, or we'll be up in DC during the City Open. We'll probably schedule something in New York during the US Open, and we're always out in Indian Wells. That is where you're going to do it. Sorry for the long URL. If you want, it's easier to just go right to our home page and click the learn more, and there's a little live clinics thing, but that's where we're going to go to explore the stuff that we do. But when we run these live serve workshops, my goal for you is that you can repeat this information back to me. So with anything that we learn, anything that we teach you, we want you to understand it so intimately that we could just leave you forever and you could get it so well you could teach it to somebody else. So I want to do a quick run through, and this is going to be painful a little bit for you, Nate. You can probably just take the next minute or two off. I want to do a quick run through of your checklist from days 1, 2, 3, and 4 now that we've gotten here. Okay. I'm going to start at the grip. This is a lot, I realize, but this is important. I want to make sure you guys can all do this. And I'm going to ask it, and I'm not going to be able to get the response from you guys in real time fast enough to know whether you're answering it in the comment section or not. But I want you to answer this in your head as I'm saying this stuff out loud. We talked first about the continental grip. So I'm going to ask you, what are the 2 things you need to do to have the continental grip mastered correctly? I'm going to let you think for a second. Hopefully in your head, you said index knuckle and heel pad on bevel 2.
I thought you were going to let them think for a second.
That was a second. We got, we got places to be and people to see. So we can't spend an hour on each concept. So now that we've mastered the continental grip, we talked about our stance. What do you need to do with your feet? Think about it for a second. Hopefully that your answer is your back toe lines up with your front heel and your toes are pointing generally in a line towards the outside net post. That's the stance. The reason being why? Hopefully in your head, you're all saying because that pulls my dominant hip back and is going to ensure that I get that rotation that generates power on the serve. Then we got into talking about the toss, and there's 2 big pieces here. What do we want to do with our tossing arm to make sure we get that rear pelvic tilt? I'll let you think. Hopefully your answer was we're going to leave that tossing arm up there, which causes this rear pelvic tilt motion. Then we talked, and this is a loaded one. Then we talked about actually how and where to toss the ball. And so the big learning, I think, that's going to fix a lot of your tosses is what's the problem? What are the reasons your toss could go all over the place? I'm going to give you a second to think. What are the reasons your toss could go all over the place? Hopefully your answer, a bend in my arm, a bend in my wrist, or holding the ball in the palm of my hand and letting it roll off my fingertips. Hopefully you also then answered what would cause the ball to go too far forward if you're letting go of the ball too early, too far back, letting go of the ball too late. When do we let go of the toss for perfect contact and perfect straight toss up in the air? Think about it for a second. Hopefully you answered eye level. We should run them through a full-blown test here. I know this is painful, but these are the check marks. Like this stuff seems hard until you break it down at this level. And I have a feeling those of you sitting there watching us at home right now are answering all these questions. Maybe you can come on live and run our next serve workshop. You actually understand this stuff now. That's kind of the thesis of how we coach, right? So this is important to us. We then got into day 2 and we talked about how to eliminate racket drop. We gave you permission, and I think sometimes all it takes is somebody as good as Nate telling you this is allowed. Sorry, I'm taking your space here. We talked about how the racket really should move, and that no matter how we get here, ultimately we want to see the racket in passive wrist formation. And then what do we want to see the edge of this racket do? Think about it for a second. We want to see it move right to left. Why? Think about it for a second. This prevents waiter's tray, right? Passive wrist, salute or right to left, shield yourself from the rain, however you want to think about it. This is going to guarantee that we're teeing ourselves up to get a perfect racket drop. When we think about swinging that racket up to the ball, instead of thinking about placing our racket down our back, what are we thinking about? I'll give you a second. Approaching the ball with that elbow first, right? Talked about this. Moving right along, we're almost done. I know this is painful. We talked about, imagine your racket weighed 60 pounds and you couldn't get it to move. What would you do to activate that racket, or what can you do to really trigger this whip motion? Your legs, right? We're going to activate that back foot. We're getting all the way to day 3. Fluidity. There's not a whole lot to really think about here, but we talked about releasing tension. If I feel tight and I can't get this racket down my back, what do? Give you a second. We release those bottom 2 fingers, and that gets us down into a racket drop, right? Hopefully we are remembering all this and answering at home. I don't actually know because I can't hear you, but I'd like to think this is helping. The 3-finger drill, again, would accelerate this if you were struggling with it. And the figure 8 drill would really iron out the fluidity. Lastly, how do you approach the ball with your racket? Give you a second. We're going to approach with that edge. What happens at contact? Full extension and pronation with the wrist. And last but not least, we don't think about pronating our wrist. If we reach to full extension, that wrist has to pronate, right? That brought us all the way to the very last drill we just talked about, which was the internal shoulder rotation. What's an easy way to know if we're doing this right or not? It involves your thumb. I'll give you a second. Think about giving the thumbs down while keeping that shoulder up. That's pretty cool. I got a thumbs down on the screen.
Did you give yourself
a thumbs down? That was magical. All right, that was a lot. Hopefully that helped, and it certainly gave you guys time to fire in some questions. So
I really thought that was a viewer.
That's a viewer's like, this guy's like, garbage.
Wow,
thumbs down. Thumbs down. Thumbs down on Nate. Thumbs down. I can't even make it happen again.
That's my favorite moment from today.
All right, let's get into some questions here. I'm gonna be honest, there's not a whole lot of them, so if you have anything, ask it. We will answer it. Brandon says, I have a difficult time with slice serves as it doesn't appear easier than the flat serve, so I tend to do both serves as flat. A good drill for proper slice serve. Go ahead.
Yeah,
we kind of covered it today. This was asked before we covered this, so we may have already answered this question, but I think we should.
Yeah, with the Kindle Heart drill for sure. I think the one thing that's important to note is that every flat serve has some amount of slice. There's no such thing as like a truly flat serve, right? The ball can't just not move through the air. Like It's got to have rotation. It's going to have a little bit of slice. It's just the less amount of slice, the faster the ball is going to go. So an effective for us, like when we're training with people with slice, it's always about feeling a stroke, right? So I always advise like starting at the deuce court, on the far service line, the singles sideline, and just aim for the service box. On that same single sideline, drop all the way back out like you're serving wide for doubles, and then start aiming for the service box. We want to kind of use exaggeration theory, and when you start feeling it, it really can give you some benefits. The last thing I will add to that is just focus on finishing with your palm up. A lot of times we get stuck on like what we're trying to do with making contact with the ball. If you finish with the palm up, it's going to greatly assist with the contact through the surface area of the ball and give you slice.
It also just creates a lot more bite. I think we have a YouTube video on that probably out there, how to get more bite on your slice serve. That was kind of like the secret. The secret sauce was, bring that palm up. All right, B-Man from Costa Rica, I believe, right? What's going on, dude? There appears to be different ways for pronation to the ball, where one teaches the racket left to right then pronation, and other edge directly behind the ball. Which is right and best for those struggling with the serve? I meant racket edge to the ball before pronation.
I'm not sure if I'm following.
I think I am. So what he's asking is just, when does that hand unfurl? So I think it's really important, B-Man, think about it like this. You're really just tomahawking or chopping your racket at the ball until the last possible minute where your strings can open up. And if you're hitting a slice serve, you don't fully open up, right? So flat serve is flat because you're making contact flush behind the ball flat. Again, slice would be, I didn't turn that wrist all the way around and I met it at an angle and generated side spin on the ball, which is slice, right? So what we want to see on a flat serve, for example, we want to see you stay in chop mode until the last possible moment you could to give yourself enough time for that hand to turn over and meet the ball flat behind the ball at the strings. Slice would be very similar. You just wouldn't open the racket face quite as much at contact.
Yeah. Kick it over the stage. I think I'm following out. I'll show this footage of Djokovic again to really drive home what you're saying. So here we can see as he works up to the up to the ball. Yeah, the ball. I don't know, I'm struggling today. Speaking's hard, ladies and gentlemen. So we see the elbow lead. Right. And now here's the edge that we're referring to. And it's not until right there. I mean, it still looks like he's just before that.
Still edge, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, let me pause to see if I can.
It really is the last possible second you turn that hand over.
Edge. So right there is when the racket has just started to come around. And you really shouldn't think about this. This should be organic. Right?
Yeah, the racket is because you're at full extension and the hand's got to do something.
Yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of times we think about how to pronate, and we don't want to do that. We just want to focus on getting the arm, as Scott said, to full extension, making optimal contact, and then the racket's going to unfurl naturally, right? So by the time he makes contact here, boom, there's contact. He's never thought about what's happened in that millisecond from the edge to the racket turning over. Now, I did want to show you all this because we were talking about internal shoulder rotation. This is a great angle. So you can see here, that's pronation because the racket has turned with his thumb down. It's working at a 45 degree. And from here, you can see the racket tip faces down while the elbow stays up. That's internal shoulder rotation. And then from here, because you'd hurt your shoulder if you finished on that side. I know Sampras did. The guy had a superhuman rotator cuff. The racket will then come across the body at that point. What else do you got?
I like it. Let me get you off the stage here. All right, moving on to Philip here. Trying to cut excess motion on the take back, starting position at the trophy pose, serves, pause there anyway. Now I'm even starting at the racket drop. Any tips on which is better and how to execute this well? I mean, you convinced me as I don't know how old I was, 36, 37 at the time, to eliminate the entire pendulum motion from my serve. So I know you have strong opinions on what to do here.
Here's the great news, Philip. What you're working between is a progression and regression. It's exactly what we train with students live. Work with the racket down your back. When that feels good, go to the power position. Okay. And if you start struggling a little bit, go back to the racket down your back. Now, when you really want to put it together, for a lot of players, they're like, I just don't want to start here. I really like this momentum. The next progression would be bring the ball and racket together and just work to the side of your body. Don't go down past your waist. Just work to the side of the body to get to that power position. But that's the 3 steps, right? It's okay to go into regressions. If you feel like something isn't working, just regress back.
It's also not incorrect to just start right here. I know you think it doesn't look cool, and that's why no one will do it. But if you think about anti-erotic serve, the only difference between him starting here was him doing that, right? Maybe you'll see it better with a racket, right? He was here. He just went, boop. So not that weird to start from here. And you absolutely can serve 100 miles an hour doing it.
And you know what looks cool? Hitting aces.
Hitting aces.
Aces are overrated, but hitting forced errors, creating forced errors are super cool, right?
100%.
That ball doesn't come back, you're doing something right.
Indeed, indeed. We'll answer a couple more here. Keep firing away. Bill says, jump or do not jump for more power on the serve. I'll field this one. So believe it or not, power does not come from jumping. One of the best tips I've ever received was, unfortunately, from Nate Dogballing here. You don't think about jumping to generate power from your legs. You think about pushing your legs into the ground to create force and energy up into the ball. So what I will say is there's a strong argument to be made that you just shouldn't jump at all depending on your skill level, because you can get the same amount of power by just bending your legs and pushing up, as we talked about yesterday with that back foot. What I will say is the purpose of jumping is to get more net clearance, right? So we talked about, I think you said 6'11" is the magic height at which you actually can start to just so barely hit down on the top of the ball. Obviously, if you were 10 feet tall, it'd be pretty cool to just serve down on people. 6'7", okay. If you're 10 feet tall, you could just serve down on people. The idea of jumping is you're getting closer to being 10 feet tall and you're creating more margin for error over the net. We don't see really any power, any noticeable power coming from your feet leaving the ground. So understand that power comes from the legs, but not because you leave the ground, because you push into the ground to create that kinetic chain pushback, right?
Yeah. And jumping is like when you load energy down on the ground, through the ground correctly, your feet are going to come up a little bit, but people worry about like how high they're getting. Yeah. Right. Like, I mean, I can hit a $120 serve with my feet getting high enough that you could slide a credit card under, but I'm still loading really, really well. And I'm using the tilt. I'm using a coil and a rope pivot tilt. It's why we can serve from our knees and still hit 80% of our top speed. Yep. Right. If we're using everything correctly, but that load absolutely helps 80%. I'll retract that. I'd say probably about 65%. But the key here is the correct loading is what fires the kinetic chain from the feet to the hips, right? And then out to the elbow and then the hand and the racket.
100%. I'll also say, I mean, I think we both had knee surgeries. I am past this stage of my life where I'm jumping a good 3-4 inches off the ground and coming down and landing on that knee. Like that hurts at 41. And I know it hurts. I'm sure it's not going to feel any better for me at 51. So for me, I'm trying to get the power from my legs and my feet aren't even leaving the ground. I'm still serving and I'm washed up now and everything hurts, but I'm still serving, in the 1-teens pretty comfortably without my feet leaving the ground. Sometimes I break 120 if I get really angry, right? So, I mean, there's plenty of power to be had without your feet leaving the ground. All right. Jeff says, while practicing what was learned so far, I felt I was rushing the motion. I'm going to give him a vocal way to start thinking about this that I think will help. And then I want to hear what you want to add on to this. So Jeff, what I like to teach players, because I see this a lot, and I'm going to turn the camera down here a little bit so you can see my hands. I like to teach elongating what you're doing with your tossing arm to find a slower rhythm that syncs all this together. So if you're rushing your motion, likely what's happening is you're just doing this with your hand. It's what I almost always see. If you're taking your tossing arm and you're starting at eye level, which is where we want you to release, and you very slowly bring that all the way down to your left leg, if you're right-handed, and then bring it back up, that is going to force everything to slow down, and it'll be a lot easier to kind of figure out how to time everything within it. But 99 times out of 100, when I see a player that feels rushed, it's because they're rushing their tossing arm and everything else is having to keep up. So that would be, without seeing your motion, I would almost guarantee that's probably what you're struggling with. Do you have anything you want to add, or is that?
I think it, if you can't do it slow, you can't do it fast. So, I like to tell the kids it's the quiet before the storm. Everything should be very controlled and quiet through this part of the serve. And if you kind of like vocalize it, it's very like load, go, right? It's not until you're in your power position that the word go is said really fast. And then everything else happens very, very quickly.
Yeah. Phonetically, I like to teach it as slow, go. Education. Dick says, so far, the new info for me is day 2, the takeaway, take back. I was taught the down together and up together. I have been working in recommendations, and it seems to help on the racket down the back. I love to hear it. I will tell you this. A lot of folks with the down together, up together really have a tough time sticking up their arms and their legs to ever get their legs involved. So what I see when Nate brings people through these progressions live is all of a sudden the rhythm just finds them. So I just think it's easier to figure out how this works when you understand that arm coming up and then step 2 being the legs coming down with your racket arm trailing your tossing arm. Like that is just going to be a lot easier for you to sync everything up. It's just simpler to do When you start trying to do down together, up together, legs and arms all at the same time, it's just too much. And it's also not as good. So this is something that actually ironically makes it easier to do. And then the results are actually better by doing it
up together. One of the biggest things
really
that we see is like, man, it's so hard to catch a bad toss because everything's moving together, and it's like you're just not going to stop. There's no moment.
It's too late. By the time it's bad, it's like you realize it's too late.
We know the tossing arm should lead the racket, but when things go down together, up together, they work in sync, and just bad things happen.
True that. I don't have any more questions in here. We're going to hang out for a few more minutes. Throw anything in there that you see. In the meantime, again, guys, we are going to turn what we're doing here live into a course starting on Monday. We will be pulling all the recordings down offline. If you want to watch any of this information, or more importantly, print out this workbook, put it in your bag, go to PlayYourCourt.com/recordings. We're giving you this and some bonuses for just $49, less than the cost of a tennis lesson. Kind of silly not to do it. And if you want to come train with us live, we're all over the country in a bunch of different places, especially doing serve workshops. Head on over to PlayYourCourt.com, and there is a section under the Learn More that is work with Scott and Nate. So if you want to come join us in person, we'd love to have you. Excellent. I've got one more question here from Eric.
Eric, what's happening, man?
And then we will bid you guys adieu and meet you guys for day 5 tomorrow, the last day. All right. So Eric would like to know, when do you start bringing your tossing arm down? If you leave it up too long, doesn't it block shoulder rotation? May I?
Yes.
I'll give the noob answer, and then Nate will come in with some curricular level instruction. So my answer is just keep it up there as long as you humanly can, because when your racket arm starts going, it's going to be obvious. Like you're not going to leave this up there as you're swinging. Like think of it as a cartwheel, right?
Damn.
Is that what you're going to say?
Stole my good stuff, man.
There you go. That's the answer, I guess.
Good trump.
You have anything you want to say? Most tennis?
Yeah, I mean, that's it, right? Like you have to intentionally try to leave your arm up too long.
As long as possible.
When you do a cartwheel, to Scott's point, it's like you're not going to just, keep it up so long that suddenly you're giving yourself a high five. It's naturally going to work with the kinetic chain. So, but chances are, like if it feels really weird that you're holding up there for too long, it's something that you need to practice. Maybe it's something that you really need to emphasize. And for now, that's okay. Now just work on as you start loading and getting energy up. Pull that arm to your chest. That's it.
I love it. Thanks for watching, Eric. Look at you. I'm learning. It's like I'm a tennis coach. It's like my top 1% of tennis coaches, an RSPA certified guy. All right, guys, tomorrow we will wrap this thing up again at 5 p.m. Eastern time on Friday. I might have a beer in my hand. I don't know. What do you think? No, not with me.
Maybe.
It's rude. It's rude and hurtful. Make sure you join tomorrow. Also, I know a lot of you guys are watching us on Facebook or on YouTube. If you want really quick tips from us, go follow our Instagram account. We're posting like multiple times a day, just very like quick binge-worthy tips. So if you want some of this stuff in like the short digestible form that you can just binge when you're laying on the couch, Instagram's the place to do it. We appreciate you guys watching. And we will see you tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern time for day 5. Day 5. Last day. I'm so
Thanks
sad.
for tuning in. We'll see you.
Thanks, guys.